Hey, what's going on? I'm David. This is a quick tour of HelloPhilosophy.com, a silly little site that I built for Stoic philosophy. Why am I wearing this dumb hat? I haven't had a haircut in many, many months. Thanks, coronavirus. So let's just dig into it. Super simple site. It's actually built with Next.js. I like that part about it. It was fun to learn that framework. Really, all you can do is look at all these different people out there that have said some pretty awesome stuff. Jump into one of them. So let's jump into Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle says, "To complain is always non-acceptance of what is." Very wise. And then you can share this out and then view the quotes. That's pretty much all that it is. It's cool architecture though. Let me show that. So the repo is on GitHub at github.com/davidwells/awesome stoicism. It has all the quotes, all the data in there if you want to take this and do whatever you want with it. Quotes.json, that's actually what builds every single page of the site. This is a Next.js site with over 850 pages, I believe. And the way that their dynamic routing works is pretty awesome, and it builds out a static site. So all those pages are statically rendered at build. So all that SEO goodness if I was trying to rank this site for SEO. So yeah, the quotes here is in quotes JSON. Again, if you have any quotes that you want to suggest, actually, feel free to submit a pull request. Happy to take those. That quotes.json actually drives this README as well. It will generate this huge list. That is actually using another project that I made called Markdown Magic. The way that works is there's actually basically a generated content block. Anything within that generated content block will be replaced when I run a script. Let me jump over the code. I'll show you that. So in here, generate, it just runs this node script generate. If we go and take a look at that, all that's doing is pulling in the quotes JSON file and then looping through that and outputting markdown, a markdown list. And that matches this key, so generates quotes list. If we go look again at the README, you can see generates quotes list, the start block, and then all the way down at the end of it is the end of the block. So here's the end of the block. Anytime a new quote gets added, I can just regenerate or have GitHub Action regenerate this so I don't have to deal with it. That's fantastic. That's how this repo actually started. But then I wanted a site just so it was easier. I'll probably add search and stuff to the site eventually. And I wanted to learn Next.js. So let's jump over to the site and take a look at what the Next.js setup looks like. So inside of the site directory, yeah, it's basically pretty standard Next.js site. There is a pages directory. That pages directory has a couple of dynamic routes. So there's the main homepage, which is just like, hey, that's that list of all the authors. I'm rendering out all the authors in there. Get static props with Next.js is fantastic. This is, I guess, came out in a recent version 9.4, I think. But again, I'm just driving this entire site off of that one JSON file. So it just pulls in the quotes and it goes ahead and creates the data that is needed to render the index page. So that index page right here is all these. I pluck off all the authors from that and make sure they only show up once, and then create the links here. So for instance, this link to Brene Brown renders out this page. So the way that works is these are actually dynamic Next.js routes. So what that means is if we look at our pages directory, you can see that there's this author folder. That author folder is in brackets. That means it's a dynamic route in Next.js. And if we take a look at the index file here, that's what's actually rendering out this author's page. This one only has one quote. Let me go to another one with more than one. So Mr. Joe Rogan. So here, Joe Rogan has 4 quotes in here. That's what the author page is doing. It's pulling in all the quotes from a specific author. And the way that works again is using the get static props method. It imports the exact same quotes file, filters down to the author in question based off of the current route, and then spits back some data, and also spits back some data into the actual component that we're rendering. So the props that get injected are the author information and all of the quotes from the author, and that's what I'm getting at here with a filter. Then inside of the actual post itself, or this should be renamed to author, but that's fine for right now. When you use router, this is a Next.js component, so I can use the router, pull off the author parameter. That author parameter comes directly from like whatever you named, whatever's inside of those brackets. So this, if this was named like ID, this would be ID. But it is not, it is author, so that's what's being plucked off of the query. And then what I can do is basically use that, in my render function. I believe I'm using that. Where am I using this? I'm using this in a link to subpages. So if you notice all of these, so this is the main author page, and I can click into the actual quote, and I can actually share this quote if I wanted to. So that's what is rendering out those links, is we're pulling that off. Then I'm generating a slug from the first sentence of a given quote. And then, I just have some really basic, so I'm using the Next.js head here to render out the actual title tag. And then I have a nav component that's global across the page, which includes the logo and the right nav. And that's different per page. You'll notice if I click into an individual route, it has a slightly different right nav. So that is the author page. Pretty cool. Also, I'm using CSS modules because, man, they're fantastic. And they solve all of my needs with CSS. I don't like writing CSS in JS. You can tweet at me and ask me why if you'd like. But yeah, I'm just importing an author. When you name your CSS file .module.css, it'll automatically turn it into post-CSS and CSS modules in Next.js. Typically with Webpack, I would change this to just use normal stuff, but I didn't really want to mess around too much with the original configuration. And then the other stuff that I did here was, so that's the author index page, which is a dynamic route. But then there's another dynamic route inside of here, and this is where it gets like super kooky and powerful. I can add a sub routes that are also dynamic, and it just based off the file system-based routing, it just works, and that's fantastic. The folks working on this are doing a bang-up job, I would say. So in the quotes again in bracket. So you can see here that I'm plucking it off of the use router. Use router is, again, a Next.js thing. I'm plucking off the quote. I'm plucking off the author. And then, I'm basically rendering that out. View author quotes. So if I click into David Goggins, you can see view David Goggins quotes. That is coming directly from some data that's being passed in. I could use the slug here as well, but then it would be, it'd have a dash in it, and I don't want that. If we go back down and look at the get static props for this one, we're doing the exact same thing, except the filter, I'm not using filter here, I'm using find to find the exact quote for this specific page. And then it's based off of the current contexts that are being passed in. So that then returns back these props, which is the actual quote data. Quote data, again, is in that quotes.json file. So like this is the quote data right here. But yeah, so that's really it. This is also using CSS modules. With static props, you need to also do get static paths. This is how you define all of the routes that need to render when you're using dynamic routes like this. So again, I'm just importing the quotes. I'm creating the slugs for these, and the slugs for these are the actual URL slugs. So like the actual quote itself is a paragraph with spaces, maybe special characters, etc., etc. So I'm using a library Slugify, I think it is what it's called, to actually create. I trim off everything after the first sentence, get rid of all the special characters, Slugify it, and that is the actual route. So that doesn't change. So that's good because the quote shouldn't change. And then people can actually share the hyperlinks to this. The other cool thing that I added to this site, and we'll take a look at that. If we go to, let's Twitter cards preview. So when you're sharing stuff on Twitter or wherever, there's the open graph tags. Those are kind of a pain to get right, and to generate the actual images for this. So Jason Langsdorf, a fellow colleague at Netlify, pointed me to an awesome library that he made. I'll show it to you in a second. But what it does is it uses Cloudinary to automatically generate the thumbnails for the pages. So I don't need to go through and generate like 850 plus preview images for this. I can just do it based off one, and it will just work. So, and if I were to share this on Twitter, this is what it would look like. Where basically, yeah, it has just some metadata and whatever. The way that works inside of the code here is, again, I'm just using the Next.js head tag, and then I'm using, just standard HTML. It's not standard, that's JS6. Whatever, it's regular HTML to add in the image, and then all these open graph tags. I had to look this up to really make it complete. Look at learnwithjason.dev for an example of this, or you can just copy and paste this code. But what I'm doing here is actually using the library from Jason, get share image. And it is using my Cloudinary cloud name and a bunch of other stuff in the actual image ID. That image, by the way, is, where did I put that? It's not in the project, but the base image is actually just a blank white image with this Hello Philosophy logo down at the bottom. The rest, the actual words in this are dynamic. So let's actually take a look at that. If I go back into the site, and I'm going to go inspect, look at the head, and then here it is. So it's this super long, crazy Cloudinary image URL. But if I actually go to that, what we can see is the image with the text, and I've placed that text at the top. I've placed the author down at the bottom. You got to play around with this a little bit to get it right. But you can see here, so like the word way, so I'm going to change, let's change that to hello. So if I hit enter here, we can see that way has just changed to hello. So Cloudinary is doing dynamic image generation on the fly, which is fantastic. Highly recommend doing this. This was actually saved me a lot of time. I think Swix does this on his site too, so definitely check that out. But yeah, so that is Hello Philosophy in a nutshell. Not too much to it. Pretty simple site. When I actually build this, run build, it just builds out. I'm using Next Build and Next Export to generate just a static site. So this will generate all 850 something quotes, spit it out into a directory, and then I deploy that onto Netlify using the Netlify CLI. And all that stuff is, if you want to clone how that works, That's all inside of the package.json scripts. So the deploy here, I'm using the Netlify CLI, a local copy of it, where I deploy this into production. So it goes to the live hello philosophy and not a preview URL. And then the directory that I'm deploying is the out directory, which is being built right now. And we can see all the different pages, all the different quotes being built into their own individual HTML pages. So that is the tour of the site. There's more to it. You know, there's some configuration stuff that I was playing around with, and yeah, some loader stuff. Don't want to go into that right now. I'm wearing a dumb hat, and yeah, this video is long enough. Again, if you are curious and want to go ahead and clone this site down, that is located in github.com/davidwells/awesome stoicism inside of the site directory. And if you know of any Stoic philosophy quotes or things that should be added to the site, definitely reach out to me on Twitter. More than happy to look into that. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.